for today's recipe, we have a molten lava black sesame dumplings, and they are so good. They are bathed in this gingery sweet syrup, and then when you bite into it, it's just soft, and then all of that nice ooey gooey black sesame filling oozes out. How it relates back to New Year's is Tang Yoon is a homophone for really family togetherness or family unity. So I can't wait to show you guys this super yummy recipe, so let's get started. Alrighty, so I started off by toasting about 5 tablespoons of black sesame seeds. If you guys haven't worked with this before, so I'm doing it on medium heat, but these guys really need a good toasting for you to really get that like nutty, dark nuttiness flavor out of it. So I would say I was here for a good like 6-7 minutes, and I'm just moving it around to make sure that it doesn't burn because it is black, so you will never know. So just make sure to kind of like continue smelling it and make sure that you don't smell any off flavors. And then, you know, when it got close, I kind of, be careful when you're doing this. I took some of the sesame seeds and, you know, I tasted it, and if it was a nutty enough flavor, then it was ready to go. So I just left that there to cool down for just a bit. So in go a 1/4 cup of palm sugar. It's like my new favorite because it has that caramelly flavor. And I'm just grinding this up until it gets to a fairly pulverized state before I go in and then add about 1/2 cup of coconut oil. I also added 1/8 teaspoon of salt to this, and that really brought out all of the flavors, and it made this like not too sweet at all. So afterwards, just make sure that everything is nice and smooth. I'm going to put it into a glass pan like this and then put it into the refrigerator to harden, and that'll probably take like 2 hours or so. So now I'm gonna make that nice chewy dumpling wrapper, super easy. I have 1 package of glutinous rice here, and I'm saving a little bit to flour my hands later. And I would say that about 2 cups takes about like 1 1/4 cup of water, but try it with a cup first and then slowly kind of work in the rest. The good thing about working with rice doughs, they're super easy to work with. You put it in a little bit at a time, make sure to get your hands in there, and then once, you know, the texture is right, basically the dough no longer sticks to your hands, it's super malleable, it doesn't like crack too much, and it just becomes the perfect dough that you want to work with. So this is after about 2 hours, and it's hardened nicely. And my actually best recommendation for this is for you to take a melon baller, actually, and then take out little bits of round coconut oil. You don't want to touch it too much with your hands because it does start to melt. At first, I thought that this would come out a lot easier than it did, only it didn't. So for me, it's just use a melon baller and make sure that the filling comes out in nice kind of like round-ish shapes. Doesn't really have to be the same size, but as long as there's no harsh corners to jut through the dumpling wrapper. So this dough doesn't really roll out that well. You want to be doing most of the things in your hands because it does have a tendency to crumble. And this recipe makes about 30 of those dumplings. It really depends on how big you make them. I'd say each of these to be kind of like a ping pong sized amount. So what I'm gonna do is press it into about like a 2-inch diameter circle. You can roll it into a circle first with your hands, but this kind of just skips a step. And you can see that I've made a little bit of a nest for my filling, and You want to put in about, I'd say like a teaspoon of filling into each one. Obviously, the more you can fill, the better it is. And this might get you into a lot of trouble, but you don't want these fillings to burst. And because it is coconut oil, it does melt quite readily in your hands. So you want to minimally have contact with it. And this is why it was so useful to use a melon baller, is so that you don't have the jaggedy edges that I do, which sometimes pokes through the dough. But the dough is very malleable, so like if you do see a hole, if you do see something pressed through, just take another piece of dough, put that on top, and then just roll it into a circle. A big thing is that you just want to make sure the dumplings are sealed, because obviously you don't want them leaking through. You want the moment that you bite into it for everything else to leak through. So So once I get the filling enveloped in the dough, I almost kind of press the filling into place first, and I kind of get it like nice and circular and make sure that all of the pieces are concentrated in the center before I continue rolling it. So this makes about 30 balls, and this is the stage where you can stick it into the freezer, and you can make a ton, and then later on, all you need to do is pop these guys into some boiling water, and then you can have this for dessert anytime. So now we're gonna make a light ginger syrup for the dumplings. So in about a cup of water, I have 3 slices or so of ginger, and I'm putting in 1/3 cup of demerara sugar. You can substitute for stevia if you want on this. This is just kind of like a very light syrup, but traditionally a kind of like a brown sugar is used. And then once it's melted, just shut the heat off. So I ended up freezing these guys because that's usually how I do it, and it's been frozen overnight. If you are going to make it fresh though, I do recommend sticking it into the freezer for about an hour, just so that the filling in the center firms up again before you put it into some hot liquid. So just kind of bring it back to a boil. You want to kind of keep it medium-high heat. Don't go crazy on this. And then once it floats, it's actually not done yet because this is a fairly big dumpling if it's been frozen before. Once it floats, just kind of like put a lid on top of it, lower the heat down to medium, and I would say cook it for about another 3 to 4 minutes or so, because there is dough towards the center, and if you don't cook it well enough, it's just gonna be kind of like hard chunks that you're biting into. So, moment of truth. Now, guys, be careful because it can get hot on the inside. So maybe like wait a couple minutes before you bite into it. But do you see that lava flowing out? That's the best scene ever. I mean, it's just the perfect filling. It's like nutty, it's roasty, it's dark. Then you have the outside dumpling that's like soft and chewy, and you have that warm ginger syrup that really just warms your soul. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this recipe. It is really one of my favorite fillings for these types of dumplings. As usual, if you want to see more recipes like this, remember to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye!